I really gave my mother a hard time. Um, one of the things that happened, I think, during the time, which by the time she had me and decided and was raising me, when she said that she wanted to give me all the things that she was not able to have, she also took away. Because one thing about my grandmother, I love my grandmother. 16 children that she raised. She had about four of her children that was literally like geniuses. My aunt, which is my mother's sister, who actually got me into the political field, she actually received the first work scholarship that FAMU gave because my grandmother, they couldn't afford for her to go to school. But she went and she graduated. My aunt personally knew and had lunch with President Carter. Her and Bill Clinton was friends. She sat on a national board, and like, I don't know, I really love my family, my mother, my aunt, because one of the things that was instilled in us is that my aunt and my grandmother, I found out that my grandmother actually started it. Because like when it was just not so long ago, and I was like shocked. I think it was in 1964, I'm gonna say approximately, when Blacks were still fighting for the right to vote. And when I look at movies like Selma, and I see how people were beaten and they did not have the right. They didn't want us to vote. And one of the things that was what happened in my family is that my grandmother made sure all of her children registered. And in return, my mother and her sisters and brothers made sure all of their children registered. And like I said, my aunt was in the political field. So a lot of times as young as 12, I can remember being out working for certain candidates, putting door knockers on doors and knocking on doors and taking people to vote, working on election day. And that was instilled in me. And I'm grateful for it today because like God has given me an opportunity to live two lives. And in this second life, I got a chance to come back to some of the things that I was taught. I also need to say that, like I said, only child, my mom and my dad stayed together till I was about, she said they were married 8.5 years. So I was like 9 when they decided to divorce. And I was devastated because I was a daddy's girl. And I often, after a lot of therapy, I realized that probably my first hurt in life was when my father and my mother divorced and how my dad like separated himself from me. I can remember back then, like Black women used to want to tell you if your dad was a bad seed. A lot of times they told you the good things about him regardless. They didn't want you to, to judge your dad wrong. They didn't want to say like, look, Patricia, I'm sorry, baby, he's not coming to pick you up. She used to get me dressed every Saturday and I would wait in this big picture frame window, and he'll not come. And what that left me with is that I used to ask the question all the time. I remember being a little girl and being the only child, and I was so miserable because at that time I thought, like, why don't he love me? What, did he want a boy? Was it something that I did, something that I said? It was the way I act, the way I look? Why? And later on in life, me and my mom had this discussion as I got grown, and I said to her, I said, Mom, I wish you would have just told me then that my dad was an alcoholic, and he actually was doing the best that he could. But I want you to know, like, I loved him in spite of, though I was angry with him for like that separation. But when I look back at my life today, I in turn, instead of making better decisions, I kind of made worse decisions. Let me go and say at age of 14, I got pregnant with my first child. I did not know. I mean, it was, back then was, my cousin who I grew up with a lot, and she got pregnant first. She had a child. When she had a child, I, kind of like wanted to follow the same. So we kind of did everything together. And when I got to high school, I had just made the basketball team, and I found out I was pregnant. And let me tell you, I didn't think I was pregnant because we really didn't go all the way. We just fooled around. But at that time, I didn't have enough. I couldn't go to my mom and like I do my granddaughter today. And I tell my 14-year-old granddaughter, look, baby, you should not really be wanting to having sex right now. But I need you to know that your grandmother, you can come to me. And what I learned is she needs to respect me, and she does. But at the same time, I do differently from what my mom did with me. My mother was raised by a mother that they could not come to with a lot of things. She was a very strict Christian woman. And there were certain things that she just didn't believe in, and a lot of things that they were not able to say to their mother that I wasn't able to say to my mother. And like I said, I was a teenage mother. I dropped out of high school. I dropped out of high school my senior year, I was devastated my mother, because the only thing my mother ever wanted me to do was to graduate from high school, walk across the stage with my white cap and gown. Because like my mother, we'll talk about her a little bit soon, but that was the one thing she asked me to do, was graduate from high school, because it had a big value to her, because like I said, my grandmother had 16 children and all of her children graduated. So, but I was rebelling against my mother, because I felt like my mother was the reason that my dad was not there. So I dropped out of school in my senior year. And I'm glad that I went to Job Corps. Me and one of my best friends, we went to Job Corps. And I'll never forget when I got to Job Corps, they told me like the 5th day there that I had to take the GED test. And I was so mad, like, because I was like, I did not come here for this. Like, I was really coming just to get away from home, have some fun. I did not come to take a GED test. Little did I know, 25, 30 years later, I am so grateful that I got a GED. Because had I not gotten that GED, and I would have had to get it when I was 40, and the way the curriculum has changed now, I don't know if I could have did it. So like, sometimes things come and God presents us with stuff that we don't understand, and we might kick and scream about, but you know what? Go ahead and do it. Do it, because later on in life, you're gonna appreciate it. So I'm glad I got a GED. I just want to jump off some, then after Job Corps, I went through 20 years of addiction. My mother was devastated. Again, my mother came from a mother who had a strong background, who worked. My mother worked her whole life. She graduated from high school. My grandmother kind of held on to my mother, she told me, and she was afraid to go away from home. So she kind of stayed close to her mother. But she retired from Saks Fifth Avenue. My mother worked for Saks Fifth Avenue my whole child life, and even my children's life. So I started to experiment with drugs, I think at the age of probably about 19. Again, rebelling, anything to hurt my mother. And when I started drugs, I remember it started with marijuana, and it's one of the things I share with kids today. When I started and I first used marijuana, I was not thinking to myself that, hey, I'm going to be an addict, and I'm going to be a good addict, and I'm going to be homeless, and I'm going to be back and forth in jail. I'm going to do all the stuff that the world said don't do. I tried it because everybody else was doing it. And then when I did it, I found I was able to talk to people and act goofy, and a lot of times fit into places that I didn't know how to fit into on my own. But let me tell you, that one joint lasted, put me on the beginning of a roller coaster for like 20 years. And I remember it getting real bad because my drug of choice was crack. And a lot of times I tell people that today, they were looking at it, oh, no way, how? But I was. And again, I give all the glory to God. And I'm so glad that I had a mother and a grandmother like I had, because my grandmother moved in with my mother when my dad and my mom broke up, because my mother worked. So my grandmother moved in with my mother to raise me. And again, she was strong Christian faith. I had to go to church 4 times a week. And I remember saying, oh Lord, when I get older, when I get grown, I'm not gonna go to church so much. I might go sometime, I'm not gonna go so much. But I am so grateful to that lady today, because she prepared me. She prepared me, because even though I was caught up in the streets in the wilderness, I remember so many nights crying and using drugs and wanting to stop, but not knowing how to stop. But I come from a family that told me to pray in spite of. No matter where you get in, Pat, pray. God is always around you. And I'm not trying to push religion on anyone, because today it's more about spirituality for me. Like one of the things that happened and how I got clean, I joined Narcotics Anonymous. I'm so grateful for Narcotics Anonymous. I just celebrated 19 years clean. 19 years, man. Like sometimes when I think about it, because it was a struggle for me. I got introduced to Narcotics Anonymous when I was 19 years old. And when I got introduced, I had not really even gotten into my drug of choice. They put me in a treatment program because I played, I was seeking for a teacher from my mother. And I had taken some pills, said I wanted to kill myself. And when I went to the hospital, they asked me had I ever drank, and I said yes. So they thought that I should go into a treatment program. I went in there. It was nice because I was in a facility where there was other people. Because being an only child, that was really lonely for me. I hated it. So I had opportunity to be somewhere with other people, but I wasn't paying attention to what those people were talking about because I couldn't relate then. But the day I realized that, see, they were talking about losing families, losing homes, and I couldn't relate to that. I was 19 years. I hadn't lost none of that stuff. I didn't have it to lose. But had I tuned in then into the feelings that they were talking about, the feeling of not feeling good enough, the feeling of wanting to not be in my own skin, I felt that at that age. So all of that stuff took me in the streets and in my drug addiction. And like I want to come up to more now because like what happened for me, like I said, I got introduced to Narcotics Anonymous. I was going in and out. I probably got like 100 white key tags, but I kept going back. For some reason, I knew that there was something more that I was supposed to do in life, because that aunt that I talked about that's in politics, that was my role model. She was. And today it's so amazing how people tell me, they always say, Gloria Jackson, that's your aunt. Because like it's so amazing. But anyway, so I kept coming back and I kept coming back and I kept trying. And when I had probably about 2 or 3 years clean, I went and I applied for a job at Broward House. Broward House is an agency that helps people who are HIV positive. And when I started working at Broward House, I didn't really know what was my purpose. The reason I went to get the job at Broward House was one of my friends was working there. Said, this is an easy job. You go to work, you clock in, you go in the field, they don't micromanage you, you can get paid to do nothing. I said, oh, wow, that's my kind of job. Let me go apply at this job. I went and I got the job, but I couldn't just go in there, clock in and go home and go to sleep. Because one of the things, Broward County and Dade County, when it comes to HIV in the Black community, we're running number 1 and number 2 in new infections of HIV. And I need to tell you that HIV swept through my family like a whirlwind. I had a cousin who died from HIV before. We didn't even know what was wrong with him. He just got a cold and the cold didn't get better. Then my dad died from HIV, from AIDS. And when I got to Broward House, I asked God, I was like, why did you bring me to this field now? Why when my dad told me he had AIDS and he wanted my help, I didn't know how to help him. But if that was today, I would know exactly what to do for him. But anyway, it was like God said to me, like, you know what, you wasn't able to help and save your dad, but you're gonna save a lot of other people's dad. And I worked at Broward House for 15 years. And Broward House, oh my God, I had a boss. His name was James Hill. Man, that guy was my angel. And he told me, when I walked in there, I had a GED. And I remember like 30 days after working there, I went in his office one day and I was boohoo crying. And I told him, I said, man, it's so many women out here that's hurting. I see they're in the streets. They got children, they have AIDS, they're homeless. Like, well, how do you guys do this type of work and like go home at night and sleep? And I said, we gotta find something for women, and him and I went on the CDC website and he found a program called Sisters Informing Sisters on the topic of HIV and AIDS. That program changed my life. When I went, in order to be a sister facilitator, you had to go to a very intense training. And when I went into this training, I thought I'm getting ready to learn curriculum to teach to other women. But the first part of that curriculum was getting true with you. Looking at the things that was keeping you bounded. Because they told me that I couldn't help other women until I first helped me. And that program literally saved my life. And I'm so grateful for it. But I worked at Brown House for 15 years. I like Anna said, on a lot of different committees. Cause I got to speed it up a little bit. But one of the things he told me, he said, Patricia, you have to go back to school. And I'm like, but Jane, I only got a GED. I haven't been to school in over 20 years. I'm 40 years old now. How would you mean go back to school? I have grandchildren. He said, you have so much to offer. Go back to school. So I went and I searched, and I searched just to get him off my back, you know? But when I first went, I went into class and I was so lost in the class. I was the oldest person in there. You know, one guy even said, called me auntie. One might call me grandma. I said, no, I can't do this, you know what I'm saying? And then, when it came to algebra, like they didn't teach algebra when I was in school. We would teach add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and fractions. And I relate real well with that because all I think about is money. How to add it, how to multiply it, how to divide it, So, but I just could not get the grips of algebra. But let me tell you, like I went on to school, and I got rid of that fear. And one of the biggest things, and I want to leave this with anybody, like I had myself in a box. I didn't think that I can do. Let me tell you something. If I had written a list to God of everything that I wanted him to give me at this point in life, do you know that everything that's on my list wouldn't have made it to my list? Today, like New Florida Majority, which is now Florida Rising, I went from a canvasser and registering people to vote to being a part of leading a march in Palm Beach at election time with over 100 returning citizens, including myself, because I had voted for many, many years. Let me tell you, I haven't been arrested and had a charge in 32 years. That's how good God is. 32 years. And in 2008, when Obama was running again I think it's 2008 when he ran for the second term, they sent me a letter after 20-some years of voting and said that I could not vote in the election because I didn't have my rights. I was devastated by that, but that didn't stop me. I still went out and registered other people who could vote. And I took that opportunity to get more of my family going and vote. But thanks to FLRC and Florida Rising and so many Dream Defenders, other organizations that push for returning citizens to vote, I was able to sign up, and they mailed me another voter's registration card, and I voted in the last election. And I plan on voting again and again and again and again. So what I saw at Florida Rising during the time I have been working here is that I wanted to do work around criminal justice. Because I feel like when people serve their time and they're productive citizens they pay taxes, let's give people a second chance. Let's give people a second chance. So that's why I do what I do today. And today I'm the criminal justice organizer for the whole state of Florida. Monday and Tuesday, I'll be in Tallahassee lobbying. Can you imagine? When I say I live two lives in one, God allowed me to go left. And he didn't let me die while I was left. Little did I know, left helped make me the woman I am today. I'm more solid, I'm more focused. And let me just tell you a little bit about my mother. It's touchy for me because my mother, I took my mother through it, man. I had 3 children that I didn't raise. She had to raise them for me. But about 16 years ago, my mother got really sick. She had never been sick. I've never known. She had never really been sick. And I had to give up my apartment and make a decision to go and take care of my mother. And I did it till she passed a year and a half ago. And I remember when she first got sick and me pleading with God and said, please don't take my mother right now. Because God, you take her now. I've never did anything that she ever wanted me to do. I never even put a smile on her face. And he left her with me for 16 more years. When I got my first degree with my bachelor's, my mother was in the audience. She cried like a baby. But you know what's one of the things that was so selfish? My mother lost her eyesight about 15 years ago. And sometimes I beat myself up about that because I waited so long. And she still didn't see me, couldn't physically see me walk across that stage. But she was so powerful. She said, Pat, I wish I could have saw her, but just being here was enough. She said, man, I'm so proud of you. You know, my mother decided 2 years next month, she was on dialysis and she had really gotten tired and weak. It was hard. And she told me in the room, I'll never forget, my grandson was getting ready to take her to dialysis that morning. He said, Pat, Grandma Barbara said she's not going to dialysis today. And she said that before, and I waited for a while and I went in and talked to her and she said, babe, I need you to close my door. I said, Mom, you gotta go to dialysis. You know you can't not go. They say you got too much fluid already. She said, Pat, I love you and I'm so proud of you. She said, but I'm ready to go. I know God is waiting for me. I've done all I can do on this side. You're gonna be okay. I can go at peace now. And sometimes, you know, it was hard. I let her do that every day. She lasted for a week. They put her in the hospital. She lasted for a week. We stayed with her 24 hours a day. And I kept asking her every day, Mom, did you change your mind? She said, baby, no. She said, but if God is not ready for me, I won't go. But she went. But during that time, she left me, my children, and her grandchildren videos. And in that video, she talks about me being born and my drug addiction and her being so proud of me and staying clean and getting 2 degrees. And I got video of my mother talking to me and saying, Pat, I want you to do me a big favor. And I need you to put your hand in God's hand and trust and make him your Lord and personal Savior. And just keep pushing forward. She said, please, because you got so much great work to do, and I'm so proud of you. And I need you to know that you're a great mother and you're a wonderful grandmother. You heard me talk about not raising my children. I pretty much raised my grandchildren. I have a grandson who's in Los Angeles, California right now. He goes to an art school there. And like, oh my God, he is just so far away from home. Like, it's killing me, you know, because he's 19 years old. He actually just turned 20. But I'm so proud of this kid because he reminds me so much of myself and he's focused.
Patricia, I want to give you the 10-minute warning.
He wants to pursue a music career. So the 3 things that I really want to say and always remember, and I wish that I had did these things earlier in life, but you know what? I did it when I was supposed to do them. Because everything that I've gone through was needed for me to be the woman that I am today. I wouldn't take none of it back, honestly. And I'm so glad I didn't die in the process. But I understand too that God saved me so that I could help in someone else. And so 3 things I just want you to take away from here today. First thing is be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. See, that was one of the things I didn't do. I was always trying to be someone else. Always trying to be someone else. So I lost focus on what is it. I didn't know what I like. I didn't know what kind of movie I like. I didn't know what kind of food I like. I was always trying to please other people. And I always call it the only child syndrome. The second takeaway is don't allow anybody to put you in a box. Don't allow nobody. And you know what? What the biggest thing was, though, I put myself in a box too. So I got to be careful of the box that I put myself. Because I had to learn how to think outside of the box. Don't allow anyone to put you in the box. And lastly, it's not about where you start sometimes, but it's about where you finish. Just don't give up. I don't care how hard things look. I don't care if you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You got a power greater than yourself. Tap in and stay focused. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Patricia. That was beautiful, powerful. And from the images I can see of people, I could clearly see that they were enjoying it as well. very, very, thank you. Thank you for sharing your experiences, your family's experiences with us. Yeah, I know this is going to stick with me for some time as well. You know, this is something that I like to do in my classes. I always try to tell my students that to speak from their experiences, because I mean, their stories are a lot more powerful than what's coming out on the movies, right? This is real life. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you guys for having me.
You know, and I hope that you will continue to join us in the future, whether it be physically or virtually, in these events that we're going to be putting on, that we put on yearly here on the west side of Fresno County here.
Just let me know. I'm available. Let me know.
I'm gonna take you up on that.
Okay.
You know, and I find it crazy. You know, sometimes I just gotta sit down and really think about how lucky we are, right? Like, you gotta think about, even though a lot of bad things are happening out in the world, you know, sometimes it's important to sit back and really think about how lucky and privileged we are as well, because right now we're just having somebody who's hundreds of miles away on the other side of the country chime in, talk to us about their experiences, about their knowledge, and make a connection, create some community, even if it's virtually right now. For a lot of people, those are things that we need, because this remote learning, this social distancing has been tough, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. So thank you. Thank you to everybody who's here right now. Okay, so now we have our panel discussion. And this year, we have the privilege of having the following people: JOYCE GLASPIE. Ms. GLASPIE is a co-founder of the Cultural Awareness Coalition, a former faculty here at West Hills College, Coalinga, and currently the program coordinator for the Visalia Adult School Vocational Nurse Program. We also have April Betterson, who is the director of Title IV, and I believe also an instructor here at West Hills. April? Yes, okay. And I also want to put it out there, I've known April for many years. April actually gave me my first mock interview ever. Amazing, beautiful person. Thank you, April, for being with us. Also, we have here today, Dr. Kenneth Henry. He is also a co-founder of the Cultural Awareness Coalition and a chemistry professor here at West Hills College. And of course, we'll be having Patricia also on this panel here. And to help me moderate or to ask the questions, we will be joined with the Associate Student Body President, correct, Jasmine Murillo. So the first question that I will be asking is, what adversities have you faced? And I'll leave it out there, whoever wants to go ahead and answer that.
Okay, well, I'll start. And thank you, Patricia. I appreciate your testimony. My husband's from Florida as well, so he's from Dania area. So got a lot of similarities with her, in a sense that, you know, with the father, my mom used to do the same thing, and unfortunately he wouldn't show up. You'd be waiting for hours for daddy to come, and they don't show up, so you get heartbroken about it. So my mom was a single mom. I'm the oldest child. There was about 4 of us. So I was always the one that would take care of my siblings when my mom would go to work. And you better not open the door for nobody. Make sure you take care of your siblings, you cook for them and things like that. So we went through the normal struggles when my parents got divorced. We were at a certain income level because my parents had their own business at the time, which was rare for African Americans at the time to have their own business and things like that. And they picked cotton and things like that. So they did work like that, and eventually had their own business. But once my parents got divorced when I was about 7, we ended up moving to not too far from here, but Hanford, California, where my grandmother lived. And back then, and still probably now, but really back then, grandmothers were the glue to the family. They took care of us. They were like mama, you know what I mean? They did everything. So they had all the grandkids, the moms worked and things like that. So really had a strong connection with my mother, my grandmother, and her teaching me how to can and quilt and things like that as a young girl. But really my parents, the thing about my parents is they didn't talk about adversities too much. We didn't talk about difficulties. What my parents always did was we overcome them. We would just find a solution. Both my parents, like I said, we never talked about that. The only difficulties that I would used to hear actually were from my grandmother, and that was because she was from Arkansas. So it was a lot different in the South. So I listened to her stories and heard everything, and really didn't see too much difficulty until I got to be an older adult. Because when I was a child, I was like, oh, grandma, you just talking, we're in California now. That's not happening. You were in Arkansas at the time, so that's not happening. So, and I really didn't see that probably until maybe the last 5 years, even at some things I did at work. I run into people, not at West Hills, but run into community members that made me feel a certain kind of way. But with the injustice that happened the last year, that really put a stop on things, though, where you kind of review what you've gone through, and they start to come full circle, I guess, in a sense. And like, well, yeah, that was a difficulty or something I went through that I really never thought about, or perhaps I just been working so much, I just really haven't had the time. But with COVID, being home, working remotely, seeing the news more, seeing everything that's happening, you start to just have time to sit down and really look at things. But even still with the difficulties that we face now, I do my best to have solutions behind it. I don't really like to look at what's difficult about it, but try to go around it and be positive about it and find something positive to really narrow my mind on.
I'll go next, I guess. And I'm sorry, I probably have already answered it already. For me, what are some of the adversities? Substance abuse was definitely one. And one that I really come to mind for me is, like I was saying, HIV. HIV devastated my family. It devastated my family. And what did I do today? It's like, I educate my family. There was a time when they knew they was coming to my house for the holidays. They already knew I did HIV testing at my house because I was an HIV tester. And I always showed information so that we were educated. Because before, when my dad became HIV positive, he didn't know exactly how he got it and all this stuff. And my dad is from Memphis, Tennessee, and in the South it was really different because like there was time they wouldn't go to a certain doctor because they didn't want anybody to know, and people died when they didn't have to die, So now, I like my grandson is, like I said, he's just went to school. He's in Los Angeles, and I just talked him into getting on PrEP. If anybody doesn't know what PrEP is a pill that you can take if you're sexually active and you may not be using condoms or you don't like to use them all the time. You can take this pill that can help prevent you from becoming HIV positive. And I remember him telling me, like, why I gotta take that girl? Because my grandkids, their friends call me the HIV lady there. Because I'm always handing out condoms. If they're willing to listen, I'm gonna take the opportunity to educate them. I don't mind. I remember they asked me to be on a bus one time, one of my city bus, and I was on the bus. My picture, biggest day, and I said HIV ends with me. And the health department had asked me to do that for them. And I went to my kids and my grandchildren. I said, hey, look, this is what they're asking me to do. Everybody's gonna see me on this bus. How do you feel about it? And my daughter said, Mom, my friends already know that you're the HIV lady. You know what I'm saying? So it's okay. So yeah, that would be one of the adversities, and how I combated that is, and not only just in my family, but like I said, it's definitely ravaging the Black community, Black and brown community, really bad. So what I do is I don't mind testing, I don't mind educating, and I don't mind just giving up myself to help other people understand. So that's it.
So I'm going to be really brief and give the rest of my time to Dr. Henry. But things that I've overcome would be just not having a lot of extended family, growing up in kind of a disadvantaged socioeconomic area, being a teen mom. But I overcame that by continuing to keep one foot in the door of some type of education. And that's why I'm here today.
So in terms of adversity, so I worked towards my PhD, and it seemed like every level that I would go to, there would be barriers. And there's always going to be barriers, regardless who you are. And you're going to be presented with these barriers. Some of those are going to be directly, some of those are going to be passive aggressively. And then there are going to be those that are just like, just natural haters, you know? And they're just going to do their best to try to hold you back. Generally, I believe that we just have to, as April was saying, we have to find ways around them or over them or through them. And you have to choose those battles, right? So sometimes you got to go around them, sometimes you got to go over them, and sometimes you've got to go through them. And you're going to be faced with basically adversity through your entire life. And so when you think you've gotten it all passed up and packed away, then something else is going to present itself. I mean, look at what's happening currently or what's happening over these last couple of years. Who thought that would have been happening, right? We thought that we've moved so far ahead, and yet we're still overcoming a lot of different adversities. And one of the biggest challenges is that, especially right now, is that we're not all looking at the same pictures, right? We're not seeing things exactly the same way, right? A lot of people choose to cover their eyes, you know, cover their mouth. They choose not to say, they choose not to fight. And that's a challenge, you know, because it would help if we all kind of saw the same pictures, you know, it would help us get through things a lot faster. But people choosing to sit in those silos, it hurts us. People choosing not to speak up when it's time to speak up, that hurts us. And so I believe that we need to start moving in that direction where we start kind of looking out for each other as a community, because we are a community. We all live on the same planet, and the only people that can make it better is us.
Thank you to all speakers for sharing their challenges and for just giving us that opportunity to learn. And on Dr. Henry's point of community, that goes into our second and final question. What is it that non-Black people can do to be allies? And what is it we can do to strengthen our community? And I'll leave that open to the floor.
And I couldn't wait. I was waiting for that question, guys. I'm sorry. Learn about elections. You know, I'm not just going to say you need to register and you need to vote, because it's important stuff that we need. We need to know about the Electoral College. We need to be educated on elections. We need to definitely register. Definitely register. If you have not registered, register to vote. And don't just register, vote. You know about, I heard someone says, like, it's about changing policies, guys. That's how we're going to see this major change, changing some policies. That's what I'm going to tell you. Like I said, I'm going to Tallahassee. I can't wait to get there on Monday. You know, we have our great governor of Florida is trying to pass a no protest bill that directly is going to affect us. And we're not just going to, you know, all the time, I think, like, all my life, like I should have been lobbying a long time ago. Like, I love to talk and I like to talk crap, and I didn't know that, you know what I'm saying? I wish I did learn this a long time ago. But that's what I think for young people, it's important. Like, we start registering people. We start registering people here in Florida at 16. So just in case you forget, by the time you're 18, you already registered. Then the job is to get you to the poll and get you to vote. But more than that, this year, I plan on just not trying to get people to the poll. I think we need to educate our community about elections. We need to know, and we need to understand, like, why our vote is so important. All you gotta do is think about how much they do to keep us from voting. Because when we vote, man, Let me tell you the most beautiful thing that I saw from relations. I'll never forget. I just wish my grandmother was alive that night. I worked in Obama first of all, like Obama came to an area in Fort Lauderdale called Sistrunk. It's one of the hardest Black areas in Fort Lauderdale. I was working and I got a call from Congressman Alcee Hastings. And because I was working on also a part of that campaign. He said, Patricia, Obama's going to stop by the office. You need to get there now. I don't know where you at work, but can you get to the office? Because we had an office on that on Sistrunk. I got to the office, man. Obama came in there. I don't know what made me go to the back. I said, no, but you need to go to the front. But I'm glad I stayed in the back because he walked from the front to the back. And me and Obama got a picture side by side. I'm hugging this guy. And first of all, the Secret Service men were the bomb too. They came in and I'm like, they told me to watch the door. And I thought I was so important. They said, don't let nobody in the door. I ain't let nobody in the door either. But I had opportunity to meet this guy. But what I told him, when they asked us, you have like one question you can ask them. And I asked him that time, I said, what are you going to do for Black people with HIV? I said, but also do me a favor. Can you just take your bus and just ride down the street to the African American library that's right up the street? And see the amount of young people just standing there waiting to vote, bro. We have never seen that in history. And that night, I was at the Elks Lounge with my aunt, Alcee Hastings, and a whole lot of other older people. I was like one of the younger ones there. And when they announced this guy, President of the United States, a Black man, I saw them cry. And I said, I'm so grateful that I had an opportunity to see that. And like, oh my God. And I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna finish. This last election, I had been out working. And I come home, I'm raising my 14-year-old granddaughter. I just got a foster kid, he's 7. And I took my daughter's brother, and he's here with me too, he's 9. I walk in the house, and I'm getting ready, I want to turn the TV. I already said when I walk in, I'm finna see, I'm gonna watch the results. And I walk in the house and the kids are watching the results. I looked at them and I just went over and closed the door and cried, right? But I had to tell them, they kept coming, Grandma Pat, he's winning, he lose. I said, look, y'all, look, let me tell y'all, I'm so glad y'all watching, but I'm gonna let y'all watch, my little 7-year-old here laughing, I'm gonna let y'all watching, Grandma Pat, we're gonna close the door because we're not gonna get an answer tonight. But thank you guys so much for being a part of it. And you know what? I took them out in the streets with me. They were out there holding up signs and all that, because that's what my family did for me. So that's what I would do. Is I would say to young Black people, anybody, young people, period, get involved in the process, learn about the process, and be involved. Thank you.
Real quickly, I would say learn who we are. One proud thing of my culture is we're very resilient. We've gone through a lot, and we still keep pushing. And so I would just say, and ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. I had someone ask me, and I'm not going into detail, but someone asked me the other day, she had read Uncle Tom's Cabinet. So she asked me what Uncle Tom was, and to her, it wasn't bad after she read the book. So we had a discussion about that, and she brought some things to my attention. So it was really good dialogue, but I appreciated her even wanting to know, you know what I mean? Because she said, I don't want to offend anyone, but what does it mean? So we talked about that. So it's okay to ask. It's okay to ask if you can touch our hair sometime. Just don't grab our hair without asking, though. I'm gonna give you a warning on that. But I have had people ask me, can I touch your hair or things like that. So ask the questions. Not every Black person can dance. Not every Black person can, the stereotypes. Don't assume. I'd rather you ask than assume. So just make sure you just get to know who we are, and not only our culture, but every culture, the people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. I have a lot of Hispanic friends. I ask them questions. They ask me questions. I have a lot of Caucasian friends. So I don't see color with my friends or anything, but I do ask them things that I'm not sure about. So I don't offend, but also to learn. Diversity is beautiful. We learn something from each and every one of us. So I'll hush now.
So thank you for the question. And we're really trying to keep this at 1 hour. So we have about 3 minutes. I'm only going to take one and I'm leaving the others for Dr. Henry. I would say provide community, be there for people. And if you hear someone that's saying something that's inappropriate or doing something against a person of color, don't participate. And not only don't participate, say something right then, stand with them, and don't allow that. That's a big thing for me. If you see something that's unfair or an off-color joke, say, you know what, that's really not cool. Just something like that. It's on you, Dr. Henry.
So I actually have the closing as well too. So I'll finish up with the question and then I'll go into the closing to kind of keep it tight. So with the question, do is talk to your family. Can you guys hear me? Talk to your family, because your family are going to be the ones that are causing the gist. You actually attended this event, so that says something about you. But you need to talk to those family members that, you know, they don't quite think like you. You know, you've got to be willing to sit there and open their minds, help them see things that are actually happening, help them open their eyes. We can't go through continuously closing our eyes or looking the other way. And I know that happens on a daily. You know, you're like, oh, I don't want any trouble, but we have to start standing up. Otherwise, again, things don't change. And we want to see change happen. As my colleagues on the panel said, we definitely need a vote, right? And so we need to start thinking about these things and acting on them as well. So, well, I want to thank all of the panelists. You guys have been great, and sorry that we have to keep it so short. You know, we're trying to keep it to an hour. And I am very honored to be part of the Cultural Awareness Coalition. And every event that we have has totally been a total success. And I've been very pleased with everything that we've done. And we will continue having events, opening up to other avenues. So be looking for us and look for the activities that we're putting on and participate. And don't only participate for the extra credit. Participate because you want to be here. Participate because you want to see change happen. The only way that change happens is if you participate. And we want you guys to be more active in that participation, because it's important that you guys carry on the torch. I guess this is our conclusion to the Black History Month and also our event. I want to thank all of those participants that came out. I want to thank all of those people that participated in the open mic night. And I definitely want to thank our keynote speaker, Mrs. FLEURINORD. Sorry if I butchered your name.
Yeah, I apologize too.
I definitely want to give a lot of thanks to the ASB for providing the support, student support that we needed, and then also the other members of the Cultural Awareness Coalition. So without those members, we wouldn't continue having these events. And on that note, I guess I'll let you guys go. It was good seeing you. And hopefully this was more beneficial to you as it was for us. Take care.